Allora, adesso ci spostiamo un po' lontano, devo dire, negli Stati Uniti, è vero, dove è già collegato in diretta il prossimo ospite, uno tra i 50 leader più influenti nell'ospitalità americana, uno tra i pochi al mondo a focalizzare l'attenzione sul tema della crisi globale del mercato e del lavoro nell'ospitalità.
Profondo e costante impegno per cercare soluzioni innovative che migliorino il futuro di questo settore, professore associato alla Florida Hospitality University, è in diretta da oltreoceano con noi. Mr. Peter Ricci, good morning, good afternoon.
Hello, thank you, thank
Hello.
you.
Hello. If you want, you can
It's a
start
pleasure.
your speech.
It's a pleasure to be here, everyone. Thank you. So I'm chatting with you from wonderful Florida. Um, I would like to say welcome, and I hope to meet many of you in person at some point. I run the hospitality program at Florida Atlantic University. It's between Orlando and Miami. We have about 1,000 students, and during COVID, we had a certificate that had 80,000 people from around the world, 167 countries. And many of you from Italy were in our certificate, and everywhere in Europe, actually. And what came from this is a movement of young people telling their love for hospitality, but wanting the hospitality industry to move forward with the future. Your conference was founded with those ideas and principles. I could not be more proud of the team that put your conference together. I met Cletus online about a year and a half ago, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on the hospitality industry of the future, not only in Europe, not only in US, but in the entire world that we live in. Our industry has always required a lot of work. It's always required a love of people, and that will never change. But what has changed is modern society values work life balance, respect, care for the environment, and other factors that hospitality had overlooked during its history. Many of us were accustomed to working 60 or 70-hour work weeks, having to pay our dues, as we say in English. In other words, start at the bottom and stay there and wait your time to be promoted. And many of the employers, quite simply, didn't spend enough time focusing on the life quality of their associates. All of this came out during a survey we did of our certificate takers, and it resulted not from our survey, but as an impact of COVID, where many people left our industry. So the movement today is to get young professionals on the conversation board with the CEOs and leaders of the industry to create dialogue so that we can meet in the middle and continue to work in this industry that we all love. I have a genuine care for humans. I started in this business at the age of 14 years old in a restaurant. I'm 56 years old now, almost 57. I've worked in hotels, very briefly in the airlines, destination marketing organizations that promote tourism, and similar roles, and a very short time, part time in meetings and events. No matter which part of the industry I worked in, I loved it all. And I know many of you love it all. But we want to have work life balance. We want to have fair pay. We want to have a career path so that we can build families of our own, do what we want to in life, and yes, still make a profit for the owners. We have to remember hospitality is a business. We're in the business of taking care of people, and the focus for the next decade will be taking care better of our internal people. I'm very happy to say that our enrollments after COVID are quickly bouncing back. One of the reasons for that is that here in the United States, wages have risen in hospitality very quickly and rather rapidly. In the Wall Street Journal last week, they reported that leisure and hospitality wages were up about 23% in the past year. This is a fantastic time to be entering the industry. People left, and employers are now in dire need of staff. So those of you entering will be able to negotiate much better pay than you could have 3 years ago. That's the first step to improving our industry for employees. The next step is to have conversations about what work-life balance, and Cletus and I have chatted about this. Really, work-life balance is in the perception and interpretation of the employee. For some people, it means having daycare on site for their children. For other people, it means working 3.5 days a week, long hours, and then having 3.5 days off every week. It varies. When I talk to general managers in the hotel sector, I would say about 50% of them believe that work-life balance is possible. They will have to restructure how their hotels or restaurants schedule the staff, but it's possible. Another 40% give me the answer that they're okay with it, but really I could tell they're hesitant. And another 10% have actually said to me, we still need to make people pay their dues. I disagree with that vehemently. I think that's a very old-fashioned management style. And I think the future is very bright because right out of the gate post-COVID, we already have 50% or more ready to work with us and wanting to move forward. So there are a combination of things from our study, and I call it a loss of love. People fell out of love with the industry because they felt abandoned during COVID. They felt betrayed. They had always taken care of the guests, and the employers were not there for them when they needed them to be. But in all honesty, there's nothing that a business operator or owner could have done differently. We were all completely shut down 100% due to COVID. We had no guests. We had no customers. We couldn't pay salaries. So I see both sides of the equation. Most people are forgiving, and that's what makes the world a great place to be in. So now is the time for dialogue. I've suggested to your organization that we have a conference where we put 20 or 30 people in the industry, ages 18 to 45, and maybe doesn't have to be so specific, but somebody that's in the industry toward the younger part of their career path. Across the table from CEOs of restaurants, hotels, a cruise line, an airline, and have an open discussion. Let's agree what work-life balance is. Let's agree where we can meet in the middle, and the operator can still make reasonable profits, and the employees can be happier. Let's talk about benefits. Is it necessary that we have tuition reimbursement, or is daycare more important? Is health insurance more important? Here in the US, it's not mandatory. So for us, it's important and we have to pay for it. In other places, maybe another benefit might be more important to the employee. So let's just open the dialogue. How about career paths? Do we need you to stay in a certain role for 3 or 5 years before you're promotable? Or can we automatically put you into something that moves you faster or slower? Maybe you're raising a family. Let's have the dialogue about career pathing. And also pay and benefits. I'm extremely happy to see pay. Let's focus just on pay, not so much benefits in this statement. But I'm extremely happy to see pay moving upwards so rapidly. COVID did not change many things that were already being highlighted. We've always been an industry that has a hard time to attract top talent and future leaders. We've always been an industry that is perceived as hard work, low pay, long hours. Those are the things we need to change for a bright future. I think they're completely possible. I am an optimistic guy by nature, but in reality, this is not optimist versus pessimist. It's a conversation that needs to be had. Sitting together, we can make things better. I wanted to give you a couple of examples in my short half hour with you. There's a hotel on the west coast of Florida in a city called Fort Myers, south of Tampa, a couple of hours drive. It's a Holiday Inn. It's about 10 years old, so it's fairly new. It has two owners. One of them is the general manager on a day-to-day basis. He has 58 employees. He only lost one employee post-COVID, and that was a person who wanted to become a musician. So he left for his own reason. The other 57 stayed there because the owner received loans that we had in the U.S. during COVID. He fed his employees 3 days a week during COVID. They could come and pick up food for themselves and their families or their loved ones. He purchased medical and dental insurance to make sure they had insurance during COVID. Now that the hotel reopened, well, before they reopened, he gave them hours of work doing projects that had always needed to be done that they didn't have time to do while they were busy. So they did painting, minor renovation, cleaning, etc., but it gave the employees money during COVID. After COVID, he gave everybody the option of work-life balance. So some people work 3 long days a week, 4 off. Others work 4 days a week, 3 off. And the ones who like doing 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, they can pick and choose their schedules and still do a 5-day work week if that's what they want. He gave them the options. He also took the time during COVID to offer free education in the building on languages. He taught anyone who was interested up to 3 new languages with teachers that came on site. So when they reopened, he had a multilingual staff to a certain extent that he didn't have prior to COVID. He showed care, compassion, and guest service toward his internal guests, his employees. The hotel continues to win top service awards. It has almost 0 turnover in employees, and it continues to make a profit even with his added expenses. So this one example to me is a miniature version of what we can do as an industry to improve and do better. I've often been accused of being a person who's promoting higher wages for employees, more work-life balance. It's nothing of the sort. I just reiterate the thousands of voices that have contacted me since our certificate program went global. I'm happy to say there are probably more than 5 million comments that have come my way since this program. Many of you have connected with me on LinkedIn. We continue to have dialogue. I've suggested that your conference possibly rotate 1 year in Europe, 1 year in the US, every other year back and forth. And I would love to see it in South Florida. I think dialogue and communication is the way for young hospitality professionals to make a mark. Do so with patience, do so with education, and do so with dialogue, not arrogance. I think people who come across saying, we want this, often will forget that we are in the business to make a profit. It has to be a middle ground with ownership. If I use the old scientific 80-20 rule, I would say that 80% of the people in the world I talk to get it. I would even say more like 90% get it. It's just a matter of now, how do we get there? COVID was a disaster for many people around the world. They lost many loved ones. It impacted our economies. But one of the bright, shining outcomes has been this massive conversation in the hospitality industry that I love and that I've been a part of for 40 years. So, in closing, I want to say, please connect with me. I will share with you information on our certificate, on our program, on our industry in Florida, on my personal thoughts. I work with general managers on a daily basis from every area of the business: online travel agencies, cruise lines, casinos, hotels, restaurants, catering and events companies, and so on. We're all speaking the same conversation. We all have a need for talent and staff. Your conference creators should be applauded. They should be recognized because they are spot on when it comes to the current world of dialogue. It's very nice to see that wages increased as the first part of the dialogue, because that will get some young people excited to enter our business for the first time. Now it's a matter of keeping and retaining them and making them love it like I do. I can honestly say, from middle school to high school to college to graduate school, I never ever thought I would pursue so much education. I fell in love with the industry, and the education went hand in hand with it. So I remain an advocate for the hospitality industry, for its owners, for its staff and associates and professionals that work day in and day out giving guest service, and for its guests. Without the guests, we have nothing. So we can do this. I'm super happy to be with you today. I thank you for inviting me. And please reach out to me, Peter Ricci, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and we'll have conversations and continue and get up to 7 million comments and thoughts. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie, grazie davvero.